Ooh.
All. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sunspot Live. I'm Scott Brooks, your host. Glad that you are here. I need my microphone, otherwise you're going to hear an echo. We are glad that you're here, and even more than that, we're glad that you have taken the time over the past 7 days to submit lots of questions and feedback. As you know, today's interview is everything okay?
Keep going.
Okay. Is with Brandon Beaver. So this will be the second. We're going to actually try to finish up everything today because the last thing we want to do is bore you. So we're going to have questions and answers today, but we're going to also let Brandon share with you things that he's not spoken about before, shared before, things that are important. And I think what you may hear are things that have impacted him and his family and things that just reveal what's going on in society. There are a couple of things I want to say before we get to talking with Brandon, although I do want to say, Brandon, thanks for being here. A couple of things that have been brought up and a couple of things that I think worth mentioning to you. We are not going to go into anything that's based in rumor or salacious gossip, that sort of thing. One, the Sunspot Live and Waxahachie Sun are more dedicated, or only dedicated to really the truth, to facts, and to be able to share those things with you. So a number of questions have come in that are based in rumor, and we're just not going to go there. Even if I wanted to go there, as most of the media would want to go there, Brandon, my guess is that Brandon would say, I'm not going to go down that road because really it serves no purpose. Much of this that's on social media is based in rumor, and it's a waste of time, and you'll hear more about that today. The other thing I want to mention is that some of you have said, well, Brandon and Scott are friends, and so Scott won't ask the tough questions. The word tough is a bit relative. Brandon and I are friends. I care about Brandon and him personally. I care about his family, but Brandon also recognizes that we're going to deal with the truth, and I think that really has served as the basis for us growing to learn about one another, to know each other better. Is that really the pursuit here is the truth? But if anyone believes that because of a relationship that I'm not going to ask what you might refer to as a tough question, I think you've misread this intention, our intention, my intention. So I wanted to say that to you. We also have a giveaway today. We're going to give away 2 tickets to the World Champ Texas Rangers. 2 tickets instead of opening day, which I went to opening day and looked at what's available. I don't want to have anybody sit up in the cheap seats, as it were. So their first series is against the Cubs. The dates of those are opening day is March the 30th. That's a Thursday. They skip Friday, and then they play Saturday and Sunday, which would be, I'm sorry, March 28th is a Thursday, March 30th is a Saturday, March 31st is a Sunday. So for the winner, you can choose a game, any game in that first series with the Cubs, or as far as I'm concerned, you can pick any game in the year. So you just let us know when you are announced as the winner. To have a chance to win, you need to comment on what you consider to be the best segment here. Share, follow, like, roll down the street, tumbling, do and jump. No, sing the national anthem in Greek backwards, that kind of thing. But no, all you need is to like, share, follow, and tell us your favorite segment. So that's the plan. Okay? I don't think I've forgotten anything, have I? Oh, mission statement. I want to tell you, Sunspot Live exists because we are filled in America with a bunch of crap out there, and I really want this to be a place where people can come into, share your opinions, even if some of them are rough. We talked about politics on Tuesday. It got a little bit rough for some folks, but that's okay as long as it doesn't get out of line. Then we're fine. But this is a place where we can have a good, healthy discussion and come away the better for it. So today, this is about a continuation of Brandon's time, and I'm grateful to be able to give it to him. I'm grateful that he agreed to do it. So I'm going to turn it over to Brandon, but let me set it up with this. We got out a lot last week, and we talked about, I think, all facets of this. There came a point maybe 3 or 4 years after the murder that it really became quiet, has been quiet ever since, right? So there are things that Brandon and his family experienced in the first, still do, but particularly early on, that I think Brandon wants to talk about. But I'm going to let Brandon share with you the way he wants to share it with you. And Brandon also has some questions that he had that are in his possession that he's just going to ask and answer himself, and we'll go from there. Then we're going to come back to what are 4 pages of questions, most of which I'm going to ask. Some are embedded in rumors and nonsense, so I'm not going to go there. But I want to turn it over to Brandon, and we'll go from there. So the floor is yours.
All right. Actually, there's some questions that I looked at from last Thursday and some questions that popped up from your Tuesday program that I wanted to address.
Okay.
I got to put these on. All right. J.D. Cooper. Can I assume B.D. Cooper, right? What could police have done to help be more clear about the lack of validity to the insane theories of you and your dad's involvement early on? You know, it's not their job to kind of regulate what people think. If you reach out to Gumshoe, who is one of the knowledgeable authorities, he actually can lead you to a statement that was made on Midlothian Police Department's Facebook page regarding that they have determined that my father was actually where he stated he was and all of these kinds of things. I don't really think that the police department's going to get involved into, extraneous theories that he left his phone there and transported here somehow or whatever. They're just not going to get into that crap.
Mm-hmm.
But
I will say that some of the comments that have been made to me is how does anyone really know that what Brandon and his dad, where they were and what they were doing and all that sort of thing? Well, obviously the police can verify that. As the media, we were able to verify it as well. So there it wasn't long after all the not hype, but the I don't know what the shock of all this happened, and that the local news media said, yes, Brandon was in Mississippi, yes, your dad was in San Diego, and that's not been a topic of discussion since then.
I think the better question is that would my dad even be involved in this discussion had we not ever done the live bloody shirt interview?
Right.
Had we never done that, no one would know who my dad is, and this would be a non-issue.
Right.
Simple as that.
Yep.
Mr. Tom Webster, Sluther Vandross, a.k.a. Do police believe the person in the church turned their phone off? I do not know the answer to that, but I would like to know the cell tower data, if it's possible that somehow they can see someone moving towards a tower and away from the tower, like in travel. I mean, it's very apparent that Missy, they know where Missy originated from, and they know where she wound up at the church. So if they have Missy's cell tower data, that would be, a baseline for information that would relate to someone who was traveling towards the church or either away from the church, or traveling towards the church and stopped, turned their phone off or whatever. I mean, I have a lot of questions with that too. I have another scenario where the cell phone may have existed in the presence of that very same tower all along. And can you sense movement of that phone towards the church, assuming they had a phone on them or carried the phone?
Right.
It's kind of like a Doppler effect,
Yeah. There isn't any indication on that video that the person in the church had a phone on them, right? I mean, I guess with all that equipment on, you could stuff it anywhere, but can't readily see anything.
One thing I want to add about Tom Webster, there are only maybe 2 or 3 people out there that I have communicated with because I find them extremely knowledgeable and highly intelligent in how they've arrived at their conclusions. And Tom Webster is a guy that if you don't know a whole lot about this, you need to watch. He's got I think it's a 3.5 or a 4-hour video. And he is so intelligent. It's kind of baffling, but he's very comedic and funny. Hence the name Sleuth or Vandross.
Right.
But he did some stuff on the Nissan Altima license plate, and it was it was really, really intriguing, the steps that he took to try to decipher the information on the license plate.
Right.
And he was fairly certain that this character was this, and this third character over here in this position was that. He was fairly certain of that. I believe he reached out to Midlothian PD with his assumptions, and even I did. I said, "Hey, have you seen this guy? Have you seen the work that he's done?" And they were like, "Yeah, this is pretty cool." I mean, they were hot. They were very impressed. And I posed the question: Can you only have, I think Texas is 6 or 7 digits on a license plate.
Yeah.
Can you have position number 2 if you know what that character is, and say position number 5 over here if you know what that is, and you know that it was a Nissan Altima? With those 2 characters, can you arrive at the car? And they said you can.
Really? Yeah.
So they plugged his assumptions in there and came up empty-handed, as far as I know. But needless to say, Tom doesn't necessarily, with respect to culpability on anybody, he doesn't really draw any conclusions. He gathers the information. He only follows this case and the Delphi case, and that's it. But if you see how much work he's put into it, it's kind of mind-boggling.
I want to say hello to somebody from England, Haley. So thank you for joining us. It's actually 10:30 or something like that, 11:30 at night over there. So thank you for being here. Go ahead, Brandon.
Awesome.
Didn't want to interrupt you. Yeah.
All right. I hope I pronounce this right. Precy. I only have seen that name, Precy. Brandon, what about Missy feeling like she was being stalked at the gym? The only time that I knew about that was from the interview that was done with a gentleman at the Anytime Fitness location in Midlothian. Prior to that, Missy never communicated her concerns to me. I don't know if if he was maybe mentioning just a one-time occurrence. Hey, this guy creeps me out or whatever. I don't really know. I don't know. Missy has never said anything to me, hey, I feel like I'm being stalked at the gym. She's never brought that. I had no indication at any point that she felt watched, stalked, or anything. None.
Okay.
All right, Gumshoe Stories. Here's another guy. Very intelligent. Has a lot of information to look at. All of it based. He does offer some opinions on some things, but 99% of it is all based in fact. And he's been able to uncover, a lot of tidbits of information through. He's reached out and obtained search warrants that nobody really knows anything about. And he's very intelligent, and he says that. Well, this is actually from yesterday when you were talking about the DA race, and the question really is, would like to see a DA that would involve his or her office more vigorously in the Beavers murder investigation, and I posed a question to the investigators on several, of the things that I knew that they were working on. I knew that a lot of it was circumstantial. So my concern was ever bringing that to the DA and having the DA validate it in the eyes of a courtroom, and all of the. If you're going to bring something to trial as a prosecutor, you want to make sure that you have a valid case and right. things like that. And so what they did explain to me is that as they work through something, and granted, if it's not concrete. If it's concrete, that's slam dunk kind of stuff, right? So if it's more circumstantial in nature, there are murder cases built. A lot of them on circumstantial stuff. A lot of them.
Right.
And so what they have to do is they have to go to the DA's office and bring their findings and say, hey, here's what we found. Then the DA has to look at it and say, okay, is there enough culpability here? Is there enough that points, to the person's, guilt or involvement in this, and they have done that. They've taken certain things that they've done in the past, and they've brought it to the DA, whether it was Patrick Wilson early on or maybe Ann
Montgomery,
Montgomery. But I don't think we don't have an actual individual DA here, right? I mean, it's really just the office of the district attorney, and
there is a district attorney, but that district attorney runs an office of 55 people. What should be 55 people, it's not full now, but bunch of attorneys, felony division, misdemeanors, that kind of thing.
So yes, I don't really know about politics, don't care about it.
Yeah.
I really don't, but I mean, I know that it doesn't matter what political stance you have. I mean, that's what the police do. Here's a big one. Clearing suspects. There's been a number of questions regarding has this person been cleared? Has that person been cleared? And I want to make it clear that at no point has Midlothian PD ever said that anyone was ever clear. That word in an open investigation doesn't exist. And I mean, it's something that you probably hear in the media. The media may say, well, they cleared that guy, and that's really not true. I mean, in an open investigation, a murder investigation especially, nobody's cleared until there's an arrest.
Right.
And that's really, I mean, it's as simple as that. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah. Okay.
So
makes sense. I mean, I would say that and we've all seen it, whether it's been on TV or documentaries and other places. I certainly have been exposed to it, where what you said earlier about district attorneys or any prosecutor team, they want to have their facts together and they want to believe they have a winnable case before they're going to present it to a grand jury or to a jury. And I believe really at the heart of this thing rests that kind of challenge is
You only have one shot at that.
Yeah, so because there's a double jeopardy, and the one shot is these folks, particularly ultra insecure, uh, nervous, easily stressed district attorneys, will not want to go to trial unless they are almost confident that it's a slam dunk. And so here we have a case where it seems to me, and this is just my opinion, not that anybody asks or anybody cares, but I believe we have an element that exists here, and I believe same thing applies to the police department. Is they're just, I don't know about you, Brandon. I want to ask you: do you believe any law enforcement agency out there knows who did it? Nope. Okay. So we just I don't. It's so difficult to grasp, and I know some of you agree with this and have expressed it. Maybe everybody does, but that you have a video of somebody, as we've talked about before. Brandon believes that it's random. Many people believe it's targeted, but we have somebody on video. Got there before. Missy died, a couple hours later, or thereabouts, hour and a half later, hour later, somewhere in that neighborhood. Anyway, a crime scene and a video of a car. Who knows if that car was involved? But it's an unsolved case, and it just baffles. For me, it baffles the brain how that can be. Anyway, what else do you have on your list?
That's pretty much it.
All right, so I think I'm going to go through, instead of going in the order we talked about earlier. I'd like to ask mine to stay in continuation, and then we'll just close with what you want to share, whether it be about social media or anything else that we haven't gotten to. A lot of questions are coming in on our social sites. I want to just let me take a look at these.
If we have to go longer, I'm good with that.
Okay, yeah, we may go a little longer today. We're trying to. I love having Brandon here and interaction. But again, we don't want to beat a horse to smithereens here, and we don't want to bore you. But let me see what we got here. Yeah, somebody wrote, Tom Webster wrote, the MPD wrote on Facebook, we have confirmed that your dad, was in California by several sources. You can determine movement, but it's not often very accurate. Gets from torn apart in court.
That's from somebody knowledgeable of cell tower data?
Yeah, okay, yeah. So,
who is that?
That is Hamilton.
Okay. Hamilton Miller Lite.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Got it.
This is Haley from England. Did the police say that they think the perpetrator recorded it? You haven't heard that, correct?
I don't know. That showed up. The Midlothian police made a comment about the use of a cell phone, and I don't really know that took off in a couple of different directions, I think, with people's imagination. So, no.
This is a good question from Jackson. Says, Brandon, if you are comfortable answering this, for a lot of us, even the thought of losing a loved one is hard to bear. What would you say to someone that is going through grief? There is no one thing that you're going to say. Yeah. Nothing. It's just a continual form of presence and support. Right.
I will tell you this: since losing Missy, I've encountered a few people who've lost either a parent or both parents, or have lost a child, and in some cases the grief was so overwhelming that it caused a divorce. It caused them to it caused long-term problems. Yeah. And grief is capable of doing that. Yeah. To some. I mean, I literally have known some people that have lost children
Mm-hmm.
who have really gone, that have caused a divorce from the father of the child.
Yeah, I think
And I mean, it affects people differently, and I don't really I don't have an answer for this, but you've got to believe in something greater than yourself or greater than the pain, and it has to be the God Almighty.
yeah.
It has to be.
Right.
There's just no other way around it. So
You and Missy Christians, yes.
yeah.
Yep. The I agree with that. I don't have the statistics in front of me, so what I'm saying is more anecdotal than not. But there are a lot of relationships, married, boyfriend, girlfriend, parent, child, whatever, that get torn apart despite every effort to keep it together. When murder comes along, my family on my wife's side has experienced suicide, and had I can, and maybe you can relate to this, particularly with your girls, but had I not said in my mind that I am going through this with her, no matter what, there are moments when the grief is so overbearing, that's so stifling and heavy, that nobody wants to go through that, and those relationships some can't bear it. Now your girls have in many respects amazed me, and maybe they've amazed
There's
you.
a lot of things that's happened that nobody knows about. But
So-
there have been some real struggles.
So
I mean, we're
I-
talking real.
And I don't, unless you want to talk about it, I don't want to go into
Not
those
really.
personal things. But what do you, just for those watching, if somebody said, well, how are your girls, or what are they like now?
Well,
What would you say?
I think there's a number of people right now that think that the girls and certain members of the family are still balled up in a corner, and that's not true at all.
Mhm.
My oldest daughter, she'll be 23 in March. She is finishing her master's degree at SMU in psychology. She wants to be a counselor, and she wants to help other people who are particularly young people.
Right.
I will say that early on, I brought the girls into a counseling environment, and Hannah was the person at the first meeting to bolt right out the door.
She's the oldest? She's the
She,
oldest?
she bolted.
Really?
She didn't want to have anything to do with it. And later on, she finally relented to it, and the person that we were seeing at the time, the person that Hannah was seeing, and that person and Hannah actually became very close.
Yeah.
And she mentored Hannah into her counseling endeavors,
Mm-hmm.
and they still talk to this day. But this experience. My kids are not. I can't say that they're just psychologically just scarred for life. Now they do have scars that exist, but they exist in a certain place.
Yeah.
And but Missy is not the kind of person that would she would never want her girls to just live the rest of their life in pitiful existence because
Right.
of what has happened. I mean, they actually live pretty normal, productive lives. And my middle daughter Allison, she'll be 21 in March.
Mm-hmm.
She works with us at our place,
Mm-hmm.
and she's very thorough, very detail oriented in what she does. She does a lot of the accounting, bookworking,
Right.
paperwork and stuff, and she's actually working to become a nurse.
Good.
But and Sarah, my youngest daughter, she's 16, just turned 16 in November. She's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
I mean, she's high impact.
Yeah, I guess that whether it's a child, a spouse, a parent, or I keep hitting this thing. Y'all told me not to do that. But the strength that's required, and I would say this of a husband who's gone through this, and for those that want to get caught up in the rumors of affairs and all that nonsense, nobody knows the relationship that Brandon and Missy had except for Brandon and Missy. And that's not one. If I were Brandon or in any setting, I don't. It's not. It's really not something any of us want to talk about, whether it's good or bad. It's just very private. It's personal. But the strength required to go through this, to me, is enormous. And I would just say, from my own wife, to see her being as strong as she's been to deal with the results of suicide, it's the same line of strength, the same category of strength. And your girls,
After the story you told me about your wife and some of the aftermath of that,
it's
pretty.
just the strength. And I really want these discussions with Brandon and me to be able to share with you a different, not a different, but an additional context that you can add to the current context that you have, so that people will understand we're talking about human beings, and we're talking about life, and we're talking about I don't know if all three girls were mama's girls, or if there's a daddy's girl in there, or whatever, but what were they?
They were definitely mama's girls.
Mama's girls. So I mean, their whole world was taken from them on April the 18th of 2016, and to see them be able to do what they've done, we all ought to be inspired by that, and I just think that's worth injecting into the context that folks have. All right, let me just here's some questions. These are questions that many of you have sent in. I've gotten really deluged, whether it's online or in my email box, and there are some more still coming through on our social sites. So I want to get to those if we get a chance. But I'd like to ask Brandon. This is from Amy C. I will just say, because there are two Amy's here. I'd like to ask Brandon what him and Missy were fighting about on their front lawn Sunday morning before he left for the airport.
Poppycock.
Okay.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And wherever that came from, I mean, that is the most insane thing I've ever heard. I've come across that before.
Right.
But we spent, after we woke up, we spent a couple hours laying in bed talking about, how was your trip and what am I going to do on my trip and all of that. And then I left at noon.
Right.
So, and not only that, but I mean, the nearest neighbor at that house was 200 yards away.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we be in the front yard fighting? I mean, think about this, how stupid that is.
Yeah.
Why would we have a fight in the front yard? That's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So wherever that came from, that falls right in line with some of the other stupidity I've seen.
Yeah. So I think you can sense the emotion.
That's the stupidest fuck. Excuse my language.
This is what I want us to share as we close out here in a little bit. But the reason I ask it and that Brandon answers it is because it has been asked before, and seeing somebody argue is a tangible thing. You talk about affairs. Well, I mean, affairs oftentimes land in the rumor mill, and it's less tangible in my mind than saying that what were they arguing about. Somebody had to.
Well, here's the problem. Here's the deal. This whole affair thing, in the last 6-8 months of our marriage together, didn't exist. I mean, that was a non-issue.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know where people come up with this idea. It's just hogwash.
Okay.
People dreaming this crap up.
Okay. This is from another Amy. My question is somewhat personal in nature, so I want to be sensitive to that. A couple of things have always bothered me about Brandon's surgery on Friday, the Friday before the Sunday that you left to go out of town, and the 3 days before Missy died. Why would Missy leave town while her husband was in surgery? And likewise, how did Brandon feel well enough to leave town immediately following surgery?
Well, it wasn't open heart surgery. It was all of the surgeries that I'd had prior to that. They were all outpatient-based stuff. Go in, get knocked out, wham bam, go home in about 4 hours. That's how all of these surgeries were.
Mm-hmm.
And Missy's situation with leaving that trip with Camp Gladiator, that was an annual event, so it was a once-a-year deal.
Right.
And it's, I was like, just, you got to go. I mean, that was their annual, whatever they call it.
Was that the one in Austin?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so there was nothing concerning about any of that really. But
Right.
no, the outpatient based stuff. And I had been sick with these same things since November 15. So I was, and I, the fishing trip, either in April or May, it occurred around about the same time every year.
Mm-hmm.
And after being sick or contending with these health issues for that length of time, I'm like, no, I'm going fishing come hell or high water. I deserve this because I have been in this state for too damn long, and come hell or high water, I'm going fishing. I don't care if the doctor says you probably shouldn't do it or not. I'm going.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
Okay. All right. This one is from a Susan M. Let's see. My question is, did law enforcement ever find out who sent Missy the threatening message while she was in Austin, or on any of the LinkedIn messages that were sent?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
I don't know who it is. They would never tell me, but they do know who it is.
Okay. So there's your answer, Susan. They did find out, and know. All right. From Lori. Lori asked a number of questions, and I will tell you that she sent them to me. I communicated back to Lori in addressing that some of these questions that she was asking would not be discussed because, again, a lot of them were based in just salacious rumors, but there are some that we want to ask and have Brandon answer. Let's see. I'm just going to read it as it is. How on earth can he not, N-O-T is capitalized, think Missy was targeted? A thief would have gotten what they wanted and got out, not hung around and paraded around like they did. They were waiting on her. A blind man could see that. And by how graphic the actual murder was, they wanted her dead and to make a point. So her question was, how can anyone, and this will say you, not think it was targeted?
How graphic was the murder? How do you define that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there has been nothing on the radar to allow me to say that she was targeted. I mean, there have been occurrences in the past of people that have came on their radar where a targeted outcome is logical, but there is yet another scenario that nobody really knows about, and it makes perfect freaking sense to me, and it's not a targeted theory. So,
you want to share it or no?
Not right now,
Okay.
but it's coming to a head.
Okay. When it does, we'll get you back on. All right, let me see. Did he, meaning you, Brandon, watch the entire surveillance video?
No, I didn't. They had, I don't know, I don't know how much total video time they had. A lot of the video that they had was either the person too far away to determine anything, or,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest with you. I think what Midlothian PD put out there are the highlights of the whole thing. I mean, all of the other stuff is just kind of nonsensical things that you're not going to really gain anything from. But no, I have not seen the whole thing.
Okay.
I don't think it's as much as people think it is.
Right. So when I responded to,
I think Gumshoe actually has the answer to that one.
okay, I don't, maybe
Somewhere.
Gumshoe will weigh in on it. But when I responded to Lori, I mentioned yes. I'd like to just say that the video, Brandon just said it, but there may be more to that video. There may be, I don't, the parts of it where all you see is dark. So I don't know that anybody can say they've actually seen the whole video.
I will say that
but,
MPD selected the video based on the ability for people to identify who that was.
Okay.
So the proximity of that person to the camera, and the ability to decipher what they're doing and their behaviors. That's why they put it out there. All the other stuff is just, from what I understand, is just kind of rubbish stuff.
All right, yeah. All right, and was there or was there not actual video of the murder itself?
There was not.
Okay, so for those of you that believe that there was a video of the murder, there is not. So I know that's been lingering out there, so good to put that to rest. This is from a question from Chambers Creek. Let's see. On the Brandon Beavers interview, can you ask him if the Midlothian Police Department has any promising leads or suspects? It's been like 4 years since the public was updated.
I thought we hit this last week.
We may have.
But right now, no.
Okay.
None. They've been silent for 3 years.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, you just answered what the next one was. And you answered that one. So those are the ones, again, without getting into the ones that are all about rumor and really would lead us down a path of just, in every way I can imagine, treating Missy unfairly. If it's based in rumor, we're not going there. And I know that may disappoint some people, but I hope at the end of the day you will respect the fact that this really, my discussion with Brandon, whether it's offline or online, has never veered into that sort of thing. It's always been, here are the facts, and we're going to stick to the facts.
well, we've never, everything that we've covered under these circumstances, we've never discussed anyway. I've never discussed any of this with you at all. So.
Right, and I'm not, unless I have some reason because of investigative reporting to ask someone something, I don't want to go into rumor and salaciousness. Let's see. There was one that just up here I wanted to ask you. I don't understand why the Texas Rangers were dismissed at the earliest stages of the investigation. What is the sentiment towards the Texas Rangers?
There was a rumor that a Ranger showed up in the first day or early hours of the whole thing and was asked to leave. And I suspect that's because all of the other players were put in place.
Yeah.
FBI, there's a couple others, and all of that was already, I can only assume that when they reached out to the FBI, that all of the other law enforcement things that fall under their auspice came into play.
Mm-hmm.
The Texas Rangers, they have a good name for what they do. I'm sure they could, but, how many heads do you want in a room, kind of a thing. And they were said, no, I think this is all we need.
Okay. My question, this is from Nadine. My question is about security at the church. Do you know if any of the people that worked security ever appeared during her classes?
Now, which church?
I assume it's Creekside.
Because I don't know anything about the personnel at Creekside.
And
now, when she said security, there was a lot of security at Missy's funeral.
Right.
So I don't really know which. Say the question again. Maybe I could figure this out.
Do you know if any of the people that worked security at the church ever appeared during her classes?
Not to my knowledge.
And do you know this, Brandon?
No.
This was because of torrential downpour. Missy went inside to get set up. Do you recall any other occasion when she had to do the same thing?
Maybe if it was extremely cold outside, I think on occasion she did, but not because of rain. This was probably the first time that a rain event forced her indoors.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about security. If
there's no security when Missy was there.
Okay, yeah, and there wouldn't need to be security if she was outside unless you wanted to pay for it. You guys wanted to pay for it yourself. Speaking of security, have you guys ever hired anybody, a private investigator?
I haven't found any validity in what they can actually pull off. They can't interact with law enforcement working an investigation to. In other words, if you were to hire a private investigator, all they can really do is just chase the rumor mill kind of stuff.
Right.
All of the evidentiary type findings and verification of those kind of things, they'll never be able to do that. I mean, I don't care what anybody says. I mean, you're either everything that the folks working the investigation have at their have already gained. A PI is going to be starting from like scratch, and they wouldn't be able to make heads or tails out of it unless they had numerous resources. But still, no evidentiary type things are ever going to be shared with someone like that. Nor will law enforcement necessarily allow them to share their finding. I mean, unless it's something significant. I mean, but you have to understand that how all of that rolls downhill is how it plays out in the courtroom. Where how the validity of information, or how did the arrival at a conclusion? How did that come about? And it was by a private investigator. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just. I mean, I can understand private investigators doing really cool stuff with like false insurance claims and things like that. I really see a valid thing with those guys on that stuff, but on stuff like this, complicated, complex, multifaceted, 50 million rumors going around in town. How are you going to even begin to work through that crap?
It's not a job I would want. Tamara says, and I think you might appreciate this, and you can share what you think of this comment, but Brandon, you've cleared up a lot of questions. It's amazing how things get twisted. Thank you both.
Absolutely.
So Haley asks, does Brandon know how Missy was murdered? I'll let you answer it if you'd like. If not, I can.
I'm going to leave that up to the Midlothian Police Department.
I mean, you've been privy to some things, but not privy to all, right? I mean, families aren't.
I've been privy to a lot of things, but there's a reason for the way things exist, and that's all I can really say.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, I want to capture any more. A lot of these questions we've already asked and answered. Is there some Douglas Husar says, is there anything you would have done different along the way?
And what facet of this? I wish I knew. There's so many different facets.
Yeah, I think maybe it's. Is there? I mean, we talked last week about the interaction with the media. Oftentimes families will look back and say, "Gosh, I wish I would have not ever entertained the media, or had this interview or that interview."
I mean, as far as regrets, yeah. I mean, I'm not somebody that. I look. I don't have a lot of friends, but the friends I've got are good ones, and I'm just not. My makeup is not something that it deserves to be in front of a camera. It just doesn't bode well for, But I don't know if they're in essence asking if I have any regrets. And did it say how I handled something, or just about the
just
entire
wanted
thing?
to know if you had any regrets.
In hindsight, I'm sure there are.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to continue to monitor these questions that are coming in. There's a lot coming in, and I want to be sure I don't miss anything, although you may think I have because of not saying someone's name and asking a question. We don't want to be duplicitous, and we've answered, and I've asked, you've asked, and there have been a lot of questions answered. What I want to do now, what time is it? It is 5:19, almost 5:20. Brandon, there are some things that you have mentioned that you want to be able to share that you've not shared before, that may be I don't know if it's emotional, but that may be a bit crazy, things you've experienced. So I'm going to just let you go into that, and then I will come back with more questions and things like that. Although I see your dad. No, that's Tom Webster. Says, hi, sorry so many people falsely accuse you. That's from Tom Webster.
Thanks, Mr. Tom.
Okay.
It's just the name of the game, brother.
And he put at Randy Beavers, so he's wanting to include your dad as well. So, all right.
I wish
bud.
I wished I had a lead off into this.
Well,
And I don't want to disappoint anybody, because this doesn't necessarily have to do with the investigation. It has to do with what I experienced as an individual psychologically, and the path it led me down. So, it doesn't really have anything to do with circumstances surrounding the investigation or all that, but
right.
I have a basic, actually more than a basic, I have a fairly substantial curiosity in human behavior.
Mhm.
Okay, I don't really take things for granted. I like to try to know what makes people tick and how they work and why they think the way they do and why they act the way they do. I've always been that way, and early on in this, I saw a lot of comments on some of the media sites and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
and it was pretty baffling. The bottom line is that from the point, like I mentioned last Thursday, that person in the media during that very initial interview, when that person posed a statement or brought a leaded question in that had to do with my potential guilt or involvement,
Mm-hmm.
from that moment forward, for probably 3 years, I was psychologically under the negatively impacted by just some of the stuff out there on social media. But let me tell you something. Being accused of that's all fine and dandy. That's taking out the trash kind of stuff. But dealing with the loss of Missy, the kids, the investigation, all of the things, the pressure that came down on me as an individual during all the questioning and stuff, and being out in public, going to the grocery store, people
Mm-hmm.
staring at you and all of this kind of stuff. That crap weighs on you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it puts you in a place that you've never been before. You don't know how to deal with it. I even asked some of the guys in law enforcement, hey, do you guys have any suggestions on where I can seek help here?
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, no, not really. But so in I don't know, really late 2016, early 2017, there was an individual who reached out to us, or reached out to me, and I really wish I knew where to begin with this. They were trying to they were acting as a sympathizer to my situation and to the families and the loss, and tried
Did
to
you
get,
know them before, or there's a
never
new
heard of
person?
them,
Mm-hmm.
never heard of them. I never was in any of those Facebook sites or anything. I'm not going to sit there and read this crap.
Right.
So I never really participated on the local chatter with all this mess. I mean, I did catch wind of a lot of it. Don't get me
Mhm.
wrong, but there was this one individual who is not a local that created a massive stink and infiltrated a lot of the local social circles and a lot of the rumors that were going around. I mean, pretty intelligent individual, if you ask me.
Mm.
But this goes on and on. This went on for a while, gaining my trust, and I'm a very naive person. I am, okay? I believe in the goodness of everybody,
Yeah.
and I will reach out my hand to you without knowing who you are nobody ever taught me stranger danger growing up. I just didn't grow up in that kind of age.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty naive, and I don't have any boundaries. But I opened myself up to a lot of people that were actually not there for any benefit. Okay, they were there to actually tear me down and rip me apart. And so I became intertwined with this individual, and they went around and wrecked some things in the community. People, accusatory names. There was an article in a magazine written about this individual.
Mm-hmm.
But it gets even worse. I mean, so pictures. There was a picture that came from this individual that I don't think they actually created. I think someone else created it for them. But they're in that initial media interview where I'm walking towards the camera. It's almost like B-roll footage, if you know what that is.
Yeah, yeah.
They're just rolling the camera. Things haven't really started. But there was a snapshot, a frame of that where I'm walking holding a water bottle, where my hand is injured, like I had sustained an injury. And the premise was that I sustained an injury in an altercation with Missy in the church.
Yeah, it's kind of like the OJ thing.
Stupid.
Yeah.
Just weird stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That was something weird. And then some other weird things that you could easily blow off as just comical, stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And then it begins to get a little more in depth and a little more crazy. And you got to understand, this is over the period of 6 months, this back and forth stuff. And there was a website that was created about Missy's murder and the investigation. And the website, let me back up a little bit. There were some accusations that the company that we own was involved in some activity with Mexican nationalists or Mexican nationals
Mm-hmm.
that brought the MS-13 gang up here, and we conspired with them to have Missy murdered. Things like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Far-fetched.
Mm-hmm.
Far-fetched. And that's one thing.
Was that from this same person or the multiple other people?
Same
person.
The website that was created touched on that and a few other things that were pulled out of thin air
Mm-hmm.
to make it look like, there was a conspiracy involving local law enforcement, the sheriff, basically all of the law enforcement in Ellis County.
Right.
Okay, just massive conspiracy cover-up.
Mm-hmm.
So this website that was created, and I actually know this to exist today, but not that website, but a different one in Ellis County regarding something totally different, which bothers me. So this website was created, and it's one of these people look at and they're just like, this is crazy. So it was intended to be a eye candy to begin with,
Yeah.
salacious type
Clickbait.
insane
Yeah.
stuff. So what this person did was they started monitoring IP traffic coming to the website.
Mm-hmm.
And they started determining where these IP addresses came from and where they originated. And supposedly some of this traffic came from the DA's office. Okay? Mm-hmm. So this person's monitoring this, and they're actually communicating to me, hey, Brandon, I've got all of this IP traffic emanating from this area, that area, on a repetitive basis over a given period of time. And so then the IP addresses are given names. Hey, this guy's name's Gary. And don't you find it kind of strange that he visited here, here, and here, and over here we have another person named whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes on and on and on. So it was actually, I don't know anything about that stuff. So, but it was just a crazy attempt to try to come down to something. But
Right.
let me add something. Let me grab my phone.
Okay.
Right quick.
Yep. Yeah. Do it. Check one of our connecting device.
Camera moment going on?
Yep, we got a little camera glitch here, so
Oh yeah.
do your thing.
All right. So this is the individual I'm not going to name. This is all social media insanity, but everything working out here?
It's connected device running camo.
Not getting connection over there? Technical difficulties if it doesn't
Just
bother
one
us at the moment?
second, folks. Although, could they hear us or not hear us? And is that on?
They can hear you.
They can or can't?
Can.
Okay, you can go ahead, Brandon.
All right. So this individual goes on a tirade and involves the Ellis County DA's office and puts out this message on social media. At Ellis County DA, your luck has run out. Another one's at Ellis County DA, at Midlothian PD, you're all evil, a bunch of greedy cops, politicians working the system. Your time is coming. And then it gives a link to the website. So somehow the then Patrick Wilson DA.
Yeah, Patrick Wilson was the district attorney for Ellis County until 2020.
So he chimes in, and this is the most brilliant thing that I've heard anybody say to sum up the stupidity and insanity. Patrick Wilson says, "Thank you, Internet, for allowing the world to extrapolate isolated stupidity into systemic failure."
Yeah.
That right there sums up everything.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't. I mean, that's genius. But so their response was, "Hey, Patrick, you call this stupid? No, stupid is when the Ellis County DA is in bed with accused murderers for financial gain." And this kind of thing goes on. And believe it or not, I just discovered here a couple of days ago that that particular roadmap that was laid by this one individual still exists and is being utilized right now, and on a totally different, unrelated type situation. But anyway,
Before you get to that, let me ask. I want to ask you something that I have thought a lot about. In those months after, and we're talking about in this time frame, but maybe more so, or maybe it was longer. So you got a 6-month time frame that you're in right now. But you mentioned earlier that for about 3 years, I don't know how long felt like you were a targeted suspect.
there's the difference between law enforcement and public.
Okay, so
Two
from
different scenarios.
on the law enforcement side, how long after Missy died did you feel like you were?
We talked about that last
Yeah, we
week.
did, and I can't
wanna
remember.
say July of
Okay.
2016.
During that period of time, did you, knowing that you weren't guilty of the crime, which they later admitted, did you have a hard time sleeping? Did you have a hard time communicating? Did you have a hard time just getting through a day? I mean, not necessarily guilt,
No,
but
I will say that that losing Missy, the kids, the psychological impact that everything had on me. I was on I did go see a psychiatrist, not
Yeah.
a counselor, a psychiatrist, and I
Mhm.
was on medication for probably 4 months.
Yeah,
and
helped?
it absolutely helped.
yeah.
I did go to see counseling just as an individual, and like I said, the first 3 or 4 years. I want to add something else here. The very first counselor that I reached out to was actually a place that I was hoping to involve my children, because it involved horse therapy and play with horses and things like that.
Right.
It didn't really pan out for them, but there was a counselor there that I enjoyed talking to, and she was about my age.
Mm-hmm.
And it really boiled down to not really solving problems. It just boiled down to having someone to talk to. And so I come to find out her fiance at the time loved to fish and all this stuff.
Mm.
But every Christmas, the Midlothian PD, they do what's called an angel tree, And for anybody that's ever suffered a loss, in Ellis County or in Midlothian in particular, they always reserve us a place on this Christmas tree where that friends and family, loved ones can come and participate in this, placing an ornament on this tree.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been to a few of them. And then one year I showed up and I hear a voice from behind me that says, "Hey, Brandon." And I turned around and it was her husband. They had got married.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "What are you doing here?" And I found out that my counselor had taken her life.
Mm.
And I was devastated.
Yeah. This would have been when?
I don't know, 2019?
Wow.
Yeah, I had lost another friend that but yeah, it was pretty bad.
I can't even.
I mean, just all this stuff. It was just always, it was loss of life, and it just kind of hit bam, 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 and
It does make the statement that, and we've all seen the meme probably that says, essentially be careful how you interact with someone, because you don't know what's going on in their own personal lives right now. And I mean, we can at face value, we can make all kinds of assumptions, but not know what's going on in somebody's heart.
I'll tell you what, there's a video that I've seen on various places about two friends that always meet together this is over in England, obviously, at a soccer football game for them.
Yeah.
And the one that's jovial, happy, up cheering, the other guy sitting beside him is just, you would think he's the melancholy. So you would think something's wrong with that person.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the deal, the person that you saw happy-go-lucky took his life. Mm-hmm. And it just goes to show you that you don't know. You just don't know.
And so I do want to say to those of you watching that one of the reasons, in addition to allowing you all to ask questions of Brandon, to hear the story straight from Brandon, is that I feel, given what I have learned over the past 8 years, I think it's beneficial to each of you to know that when you put comments out on social media that are brutal, we're talking about a human being here. We're talking about, in this case, we're talking about a single dad of 3. I mean, his girls, as you've heard, aren't necessarily just wallflowers and lay around all the time. They're active and full of energy and all those sorts of things. And as far as I know, they pretty much always have been. So
can I interject something here?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I'm really over all that crap.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read it a million times.
Yeah.
And let me also tell you that after you get to a certain point where you can't find the answers you're looking for, or the police aren't providing you any information
Mm-hmm.
to make you feel, to allow you to feel like there's positive movement going on or anything. And I have spent the vast majority of the last 8 years looking for answers on various social media places, and I continue to do that. I don't see myself giving up.
Right.
But I've read comments that reoccur a million times, and it doesn't really bother me.
Mm-hmm.
But I have had a handful of instances where somebody said a name or divulged something related to a circumstance that nobody else would have known about.
Right.
I'm not going to walk away because it's the only thing I've got. It's my only. It's the only thing I've got to make me to feel proactive, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't imagine anybody in law enforcement's going to sit around and read this crap. But I will tell you this: there are a lot of people out there that have been scouring this stuff since day one, and they pretty much know what to look for. Now, they may not know it contextually. When I see something they won't understand, and that's one of the reasons why I choose to still jack with that stuff. But you're not gonna change people's mind. And I want to explain something else. the whole true crime stuff. You know, at one point, you had the Nancy Drew, you had Perry Mason,
Yeah.
Columbo,
Oh,
all these
yeah.
kinds of things. It's all fictional type stuff.
Yeah.
And in the realm of nonfiction, you had magazines, books, nonfiction books.
Right.
You had newspaper,
Right.
and you had the news,
Right.
and say, particularly with journalistic media,
Mm-hmm.
where information was printed about this or that, or even the news that you watched on TV. There was a time period where, from the onset of occurrence to the time it was reported, there was a natural time filter there,
Mm-hmm.
and that time filter does not exist anymore. It's instantaneous information. So at one point you had a presenter, and then you had the audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now the audience, all they could do is just basically absorb the information for what it was.
Right.
They don't have the ability to verify or whatever. Their sole reliance was on the journalists to provide them
Yeah.
the information. Well, that has gone away. Information is instantaneous. There's no filter. It's even in a lot of news media outlets today, it's sensationalized. Everything there's a political this.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, what I'm saying is that at one time there was a presenter to an audience, and now it's not. It's the audience presenting to the audience
Yeah.
with instantaneous information. So, and I see this over and over and over. You take these guys, Tom Webster, Gumshoe, there's several others who have a very consistent mindset in all of this, and I see them participating in these, in this place here, that place. You'll have a wave of people who are only engaged in this on a very superficial level. People are only willing to spend X amount of time with this.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to arrive at conclusion X, but had you delved into it as deeply as these people have, you would know that, that's irrelevant.
Right.
So, and then, you just see these wave after wave of people that you can sense are visiting this stuff for the very first time. So, and there are wave after wave of people doing podcasts.
Yeah.
Little Jimmy in his closet's going to do a podcast
Mm-hmm.
on Missy Bevers, spelled Beavers,
Mm-hmm.
incorrectly. April the 12th, 2009. I mean, dates wrong, misspelled. What purpose? Why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
What do you stand to gain from that? There's a lot of motivations in this stuff that don't really align with anything productive in the real world of true crime. That's what true crime is. Crimes that have actually occurred. It's all, factual stuff. Maybe I shouldn't say factual, but anyway. So there's just a big rolling turd out there in a lot of this, and the sad thing is that the people that deserve the credit, they're just, it's a pretty
Yeah.
crappy deal.
Yeah, there's a book out called The Death of Expertise, and it is about people nowadays. You were talking about the audience really is other. It's kind of audiences being audiences of each other,
Mm-hmm.
and The Death of Expertise says that whether it be medical, crime, any other expertise out there, that people, because they see a snippet of information, will assume that they are the expert. My doctor friends tell me all the time that they get not customers, but patients that come in, and the doctors will prescribe something to them, and the patients will say, no, I saw on video or on Google that I need to do this and that. I think the same thing applies here. We have people who are relying on anecdotal information that they've seen somewhere on social media, and they automatically draw the conclusion that they know what happened. It's like people saying, well, I don't care, essentially, that Brandon and Randy have empirical proof that they were in Mississippi and in San Diego, I believe they were there. That's hard to deal with. I don't know how you deal with it. And the other thing I'll say to you is I wrote a column the other day called "The Dangers of Echo Chambers," and there are real dangers of echo chambers, and that is, say, people who get like on these podcasts or on these pages, and we'll all talk about the same thing, and we're reinforcing each other's opinions without any real knowledge of whether or not we're telling the truth. Politicians do it all the time. They surround themselves with people who are like, Biden is a perfect example, and Trump is too, but Biden is like, got people around and say, you go, dude, you are tough, you are working hard, you do more work in 1 hour than people do in 8 hours, and blah, 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 and he's just eating that stuff up, when in fact none of it is true. And I think the reason I mentioned earlier about we're dealing with human life here in the outcome of the after all this is because we are, and while you may become numb to it or know how to process it, we're still talking about countless people. There are some of these podcasts or pages have 7,500 people there still obsessed with the notion that they know how this was done and are refusing when you in some cases will refuse even after hearing from you and our discussions will still go back to their original belief.
You can't. I mean, you're not going. There are people that you're not going to convince.
Right.
I'm not here to convince you anyway.
Right.
I mean, I'm not. That's not why I'm here.
Yeah.
But there are people that are convinced of. You can convince yourself of anything. Basically.
Sure.
Really.
You can.
And let me. There was something, and there's some people that know about this. Assistant Chief Johnson. He's retired.
Right.
And he's told me this story a couple of times that when the video of that person walking the halls of the church was released, that day, they got a phone call, and it was this lady, and she said, that person is my husband. So they went over there to her house, and the lady's standing outside. Husband's inside the house. And so she's that is my husband. I can tell, the behavior and everything. Well, what this lady did was she was sitting in her bedroom. Her husband's in the living room. And this comes on TV, and she freaks. And this is an older lady.
Yeah.
She crawls out of her bedroom window with her phone to escape her husband, who she sees on TV in this, and she's just in a panic. Crawls out of her bedroom window to go make the phone call to Midlothian PD. And she was convinced that the person she saw was her husband. I mean, how can you convince what you're seeing is someone that you've been married to for X number of years? That's pretty convincing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So they had to basically sit this lady down and say, look, no. They went in there, talked to the husband. I'm not sure what his reaction was.
Yeah, I was going to say, how they doing today?
But, I don't know. But he told me that to tell me that, to basically explain that people can convince themselves of just about anything. And so be it.
Well, and then, again, we're talking about really the dynamics of social media and how damaging it is, not just to the end target, if you will, in this case, Brandon and some of
it's across the board.
Well, and it's those that are doing it. And again, what I'm hoping is that you, after seeing this and hearing Brandon and I talk about it, that you will come to understand that based on everything I know, and I'm just in the media, and I care about, just like I did John Wiedemann, whose son was murdered by his own mother 3 years after Missy was killed. I develop a genuine care, and I want to say these are people. These are our co-citizens, and in this case, I'm asking for all of us to step back and say, well, what are we doing here? Are we going to continue to believe that Brandon and Randy were in parts of the country and couldn't have been here, couldn't have done it? Are we going to continue to just ignore that? Are we going to just go down the same beaten path we've been on for quite some time? I hope you have a new perspective here, and so that's part of it's the residual reason or ulterior motive for having Brandon on.
You know,
but-
it's not just this. It's everything.
Yeah.
Everything. All forms of information.
Do your
all of
girls
it's
still look
crap.
at any of this stuff?
No.
Or have they ever?
No, I forgot to mention this. On more than one occasion, I've had people claim that one of my daughters was responsible for this.
Mm-hmm.
How far out can you get? I mean, you know,
Yeah.
you can be. I don't know. I guess you can be high on meth and get on the computer and make some comments. I don't know. It's just.
Yeah,
Stupid.
it's. I just hope that maybe through these discussions we have found us a better place from which to move forward with respect to the murder of Missy Beavers. A mom, wife, daughter, friend. She was a granddaughter. Were her grandparents alive when?
No.
Okay.
No, not Missy. Missy didn't have any grandparents at that point.
Okay, yeah, but we really. I mean, I don't know all the folks that were impacted by it, but I do know the week before Misty died, or maybe it was a couple of weeks, there was a show or expo in Midlothian, and I was there. Saw Missy in her booth. I didn't know Missy at that point, and there were a lot of people over there. There wasn't too much of a period of time where she wasn't talking to somebody.
Mhm.
So, is there anything else as we draw closer to 6?
Are there?
Yeah, let me
what
just
other-
scroll
what others
through
popped
here.
up here on the.
There are more.
And there might be
Haley.
a couple of responses with some of the things
Well,
I
let me
said
just
a while
say,
ago. But
Brandon, I'm just going to read these, so I haven't had a chance
May
to
not
read
even
them.
respond
I'm
to
reading them
that.
I'm reading them as I'm reading them. Brandon, this is from Haley. Brandon, the police are not stating how Missy was murdered. Does this mean that you don't know either? Sorry, I know this is an awful question, and I'm sorry to ask it, but there are so many different rumors out there. One being that she was shot because there was some information about a lady fitting Missy's description being shot on a public record. Anything you want to say about that?
no comment.
Okay. Here's someone who says, talks about grief and how people deal with it differently. This Vanessa says, "Oh wow, that was an annual event." So I don't know if she's talking about. I don't know, Vanessa, if you're still watching. I don't know if you're talking about Brandon's trip to Fish or Missy's trip
Camp
to
Gladiator.
Yeah.
That was
so
an annual thing that they did in Austin that I
Right.
knew of, at least even the year prior to that.
This is the one about I don't understand why the Texas Rangers were dismissed. You've already answered that one. Does Brandon know? You already answered that one. Brandon, we already read that one. Let me get back down here further. Who was the gentleman? This is from D.E. Who was the gentleman Brandon referred to in the beginning that was so smart, and what he thought about the murder? I think she's talking about
Okay.
Tom Webster.
Okay. Tom Webster offers no opinion. He's just a presenter of information and facts. Gumshoe,
Mm-hmm.
he does have an opinion that it's not targeted,
Mhm.
and there are. I mean, the thing is, you're either going to have to watch a 4-hour video by Tom Webster to really wrap your mind around this,
Mhm.
or Gumshoe has several years worth of things that he's done, and you would have to just piecemeal all of the stuff to understand where you got to understand this started out in small snippets of information that over time is a large amount of information. So
Right.
I think Tom's overall assessment is not that she's not targeted.
Okay. Yeah.
I do not sure if I've made this comment before, but the assistant police chief at the time, since he was retired, he doesn't feel she was targeted either.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows way more than I do.
Mm-hmm.
That was his opinion.
Got it.
Now,
Yeah.
but here's the deal. Targeted or not, there's still a murder took place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if you were broke down in some place and using a payphone, someone comes up behind you, takes your wallet, and takes your life right there on the spot. You know, that's kind of the wrong place, wrong time type scenario. But you still have a murder, right?
Right.
And so, you know, the cops still have to investigate it. They can easily say, well, this is wrong place, wrong time. What are we going to do with this? Or they can say, you know, no, we're going to treat this as an active investigation. We're going to try to figure out who's responsible. Hey, go get the camera footage off this store, that store.
Mm-hmm.
You know, was there any cars? I mean, you know, you have to keep rolling with that.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if maybe there is no motive.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there is a motive, but they don't shelve it because it's untargeted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I did run into something really interesting just yesterday, as a matter of fact, on the Texas Police Chief Association's website, and there was a PowerPoint presentation in there on how to conduct investigations from the standpoint of a police chief and in the CID thing, and it really interesting, interesting. And you know, they do break down certain things in investigations into the propensity of arriving at conclusions. You know, what's the likelihood we're going to get this? I mean, it was really interesting. But
Right.
like I said, it's just they're not, you know. Just because I think it's untargeted doesn't mean that it's, you know, I think the targeted aspect of it allows you to find culpability through evidence and
Yeah.
tie it to an individual. In some
Right.
cases, you can't do that.
Right.
But
Well, I will say that is for a lot of these questions. Matter of fact, I'm looking at a couple right here that are written. You can tell whether or not people believe it's targeted or random. People who believe it's targeted believe that it does include a sphere around, in this case, Missy, and it has to be somebody in there. And for those of you that have
targeted, untargeted is my opinion.
Yeah, right.
It's not a
Yeah.
basis of fact. It's just my
Your
opinion
opinion,
based
yeah.
on what I understand.
Right.
That's all it is.
It's, agreed. So, but many of you have asked about specific people as suspects, and we'll throw out the name or the initials, and I just tell you that Brandon and I have talked about it, and because one, there's defamation that you can't just go around accusing people of murder and not expect for those that want to litigate it or take you to court that I mean, you can't just ignore that. The other is that there's nothing that has been said to be anywhere near factual about these people. So Brandon is not, and I'm perfectly okay with it, willing to talk about the names that people keep throwing out here. And so what we do know is that the crime hasn't been solved. And so those people either, as you mentioned at the beginning, it's unsolved, so there's still suspects out there. And once a suspect, probably always a suspect until you've been,
Well, the term that they use is not suspect at this time.
yeah.
So that goes back to clearing. There's no such word as somebody being cleared. It's
Right.
just not a suspect at this time. That's the
Got it.
word behind that.
So I just want to mention to you that the reason I'm not asking Brandon about the names that you guys are putting here, Brandon can see these on his own. Brandon wanted to respond, he would, but we just aren't going to go down that road where, somebody throws a name out and then I ask Brandon, and either Brandon has no idea or he ends up in a situation where I've put him in a defamation suit, and I just have a bigger responsibility than that. Let's see. Brandon, no, I'm not going to go. That's also, I have to read these unless you, I'm just looking, folks, to see if I want to make sure we don't miss anything else. Someone says, to be honest, I don't think children should be mentioned. There's still a murderer out there, so on and so forth.
Whose children?
Yours.
My children are
No, she's talking to, I think she's talking to people in general on the in the comments, just saying that
Oh,
there's still a murder out there, and children. These people need to leave the children out of it.
yeah. I mean, if they're talking about the person that accused my daughter, I
Yeah.
mean, that's the damnedest thing I
that
ever
may
freaking
be.
heard.
My lovely bride says they are Brandon's kids. If he is the one talking about them and bringing them up, then I would think there isn't a problem.
My kids were children. They are no longer children.
No, they're not. Chambers Creek says gumshoe, and I don't know if this is a response to somebody else or just something you said, but gumshoe is on the friendly agenda. Not sure exactly what that means.
There are people that think that because I have friendly relationships with some of these more intelligent people, that there's a conspiracy of just presenting the information in a manner that places me in a good light.
Yeah, I think I don't know about the intelligence part, but I fall in that category. And I don't know how else to say it, but that Brandon's afforded me the opportunity to ask him questions that I come up with. And because I have no interest in rumors, because I own a media company and want to make sure that our media company is what a media company should be, I'm just not going down the clickbait stuff. We talked about Nancy Grace earlier, who went live on the air with somebody. I don't know if it's breaking into a story or whatever, but
It was she was still working at CNN, so it was,
yeah.
headline news.
Yeah, so Nancy Grace blurts out that we're about to get an imminent arrest, and that was nowhere near the truth. We don't want to have anything to do with that.
The bottom line is people can believe what they want to believe, and there are people, you will never convince anybody. I'm not here to argue with people that believe one way or whatever. Thought I was just brought here to present what I know.
Right.
And screw you.
Yeah, I got it. All right. Somebody asked what kind of mints are you?
I mean, these what kind
Brandon,
of mints?
we have mints at
Dude, these
in the
things
office.
are really good.
Brandon loves those mints.
And I don't like sugar, but those things are good.
they are good. All right, let me just see here if there's anything else.
We take care of our guests here.
Yeah, we do take care of our guests here. I believe I've come to the end of the last one, and I'm just reading this as I see it. Ask Brandon what he thinks about Gumshoe's inappropriate comment about Missy that he made to me, and this is a person, or to M.E. I don't know who that would be. How can he be associated with such a lowbrow person? That's written by somebody called Not Even. I don't know.
I'm trying to figure out what they're talking
Yeah,
about.
I don't know what. And then last one, and then we'll be done. What's going to break, a capitalized break, this entire case, in your opinion?
Well, confession. Just like the one, there was the example that the investigators always gave me was the pawn shop murder in Waxahachie.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the border of Red Oak and Waxahachie there, the pawn shop on Highway 75 where
Yep.
it takes off from,
Yeah.
that person's life was taken, and whoever did it exited the property sight unseen. Somebody walks in, finds the man dead, and I think that lasted for 5-7 years before there was some kind of chatter among some friends, maybe drinking alcohol or something, and boom, somebody said something, and that's how it came about.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. I don't know, but I will say somebody might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but Texas can't prosecute based on a jail room confession type stuff. Is that right?
I'm not sure if that's. I don't know if that's kind of in the polygraph.
Or they can't.
Yes.
They can't.
Yeah, where it's not reliable in court. Something
yes,
like that.
There's something like that. But I mean, a confession, or somebody saying something.
Okay. All right. Somebody asked, this is really, I don't know if it's a shot at me or not, but is this journalism? It is what you're seeing. I would say that if you particularly those that are younger. I don't know that you see too many examples of journalism anymore. Brandon was talking about shows in an earlier age or era, a generation that at a time when newspapers were strong and television broadcasts could be believed and so on and so forth, and today we're at a different place. This is a newspaper publisher wanting to allow people to ask questions of someone that maybe they've accused of being a murderer or want to know what happened. As far as I'm concerned, it's journalism. Journalism is not doing things for clickbait and being dishonest or underhanded. So this is the only way I know how to do it. Okay, one last thing and we'll be done. I said that a minute ago. Somebody says, hey, Brandon, I work next door to Four Corners Brewery if you ever want to meet for a cold beer one day.
I don't think that place exists anymore.
Oh, okay. That was Chambers Creek. So if you heard that, Chamber.
I think that there is more to that statement than what he's leading.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's my naive side. I'm not sure what that would be. All right. Anything else you want to say, Brandon? Or close this up with before I get to mine?
That's it.
Okay. A couple things I want to say before we close out. One, I got to give away 2 tickets to the Rangers, and the person that I want to give those tickets to is somebody that I don't know that I don't even know if this person is male or female. Doesn't matter, or that we agree or disagree on, or have a similar life view. But Chambers Creek has been with us from day one and is pretty active about sharing thoughts and opinions. And I want to offer those tickets or announce that the winner is Gumshoe. I got Gumshoe on the brain. Chambers Creek. So Chambers Creek, you are the winner of 2 tickets to the Rangers opening weekend. If, though, you want to go to a different series throughout the year, not playoffs, so don't go there, but regular season, and we're not talking about a suite, we're talking about just 2 seats. May try to throw in a parking pass, but you're the big winner, and happy to be able to do that. Thank you for watching and for being involved in all these it seems like mini shows, but really this is only about our 7th show so far. To that end, Thursdays will be a show every week where we have a guest. Next week, I believe it will be Waxahachie Mayor David Hill. There are lots of things going on in the city, and I want to be able to share my time with him so that he can tell you about them and then allow you to ask questions and get your answers. On Tuesdays, we talk about specific issues, stack of stuff, if you want to call it. We'll continue to do that. There are lots of things going on in this country that we need to be aware of, and I'm going to make Sunspot Live a place where we talk about that. So Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4:30, we're live, and Thursdays will be guest-based. So our mission here is to really provide you a place where you can get the truth, that you don't have to worry about that part of it, and that you can interact and we can have a healthy discussion. So with that, I want to thank you, Brandon, for being here. I really, really appreciate it, and I admire you for what you have been through, not what you've been through, but for you've handled what you've been through.
Thank you.
And same to your family.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure. So with that, we will say so long, and we will see you next Tuesday at 4:30. Thank you. Bye-bye.